It's strange how a single moment can flip the script on an entire life, turning a fairy tale into a public relations nightmare before you even have time to process the headlines. For years, Hani was the force of nature who carried EXID on her back during their most precarious moments, the woman with the viral fan cam that seemingly defied the odds of the music industry. But in 2024, the narrative shifted away from her artistic resilience and onto her personal life, specifically her relationship with psychiatrist Yang J.W. What started as a celebratory announcement about marriage quickly morphed into a maelstrom of legal battles, ethical questions, and public outrage that has left fans and bystanders alike trying to piece together what actually happened behind the closed doors of a psychiatric clinic. The timeline of this controversy is jagged and feels almost cruel in its sequencing. Back in May of 2024, the mood was entirely different. Hani sat down and wrote a heartfelt letter to her fans, her handwriting neat and her words full of gratitude. She talked about receiving overflowing love and maturing into someone capable of sharing that love with another person. She revealed she had met someone she wanted to spend her life with and that they had decided to get married. It was the kind of news that usually floods social media with congratulatory messages and fan edits. Yang J.W, a psychiatrist and a familiar face on TV variety shows, even appeared on a program shortly after, sharing sweet anecdotes about how Hani had actually proposed first. It all seemed picture perfect until the reality of a separate, tragic situation began to bleed into their happiness. Just 3 days before that wedding news hit the press, a report by SBS dropped a bombshell that no one could have anticipated. The news outlet detailed the death of a 33-year-old woman, identified only as A, at a psychiatric hospital in Bucheon, Gyeonggi Province. The report wasn't just a statistic. It included chilling CCTV footage that showed the woman clutching her abdomen in clear distress, knocking on the door of an isolation room, begging to be let out. Instead of immediate medical intervention, the footage showed nurses and caretakers administering a sedative and restraining her hands, feet, and chest to a bed. 2 hours later, as her condition visibly deteriorated, her abdomen swelling, her breathing becoming labored, blood eventually coming from her nose, the staff reportedly only removed the restraints without taking any further action to save her. She passed away in that room. The National Forensic Service later estimated the cause of death to be pseudo-obstruction, a serious intestinal condition. But it was the connection to Hani's fiancé that turned a tragic news story into a full-blown scandal. Almost immediately after the SBS report, online speculation began to swirl that the hospital shown in the footage was W Hospital, a facility owned and run by Yang J.W. The victim's family later confirmed in an interview that they had specifically chosen this hospital because it was run by a famous psychiatrist who publicly discussed addiction programs. They trusted his reputation, they trusted his face on their TV screens, and that trust, they allege, ended in the death of their daughter. The juxtaposition was jarring. While Hani and Yang were preparing to walk down the aisle, the family of the deceased was filing criminal complaints against hospital staff and submitting petitions to the National Human Rights Commission. The public reaction was swift and unforgiving. The comments section of Hani's wedding announcement, once a place of warmth, was flooded with criticism. People couldn't understand how a celebration of life could be announced just days after a patient died under such controversial circumstances in the groom's own facility. The sentiment wasn't just sadness, it was anger. Comments urged them to reconsider the marriage, questioning how Yang could focus on a wedding while a criminal investigation was brewing into the practices of his hospital. Facing a mounting storm, Yang J.W issued an official statement through his agency, Mystic Story. It was a carefully crafted piece of PR, but it didn't do much to quell the rising temperature of the public discourse. He expressed deep distress over the incident, offering condolences to the bereaved family, and admitted that the hospital in the reports was indeed his. He stated that as the director, he took the matter seriously and that the hospital was fully cooperating with authorities, handing over medical charts and the very CCTV footage that had enraged the nation. He pleaded for the public to refrain from speculative posts, citing medical confidentiality laws that prevented him from sharing specific details about the patient's treatment. But if the goal of the statement was to clear the air, it arguably had the opposite effect. The bereaved family hit back almost immediately, accusing Yang of spreading false information in a media interview. The specific point of contention was the cause of the patient's behavior and death. Yang had suggested in an interview that the patient's abnormal behavior was due to Phentermine addiction, implying that the underlying addiction was the root of the tragedy. The family's legal team fired back, stating clearly that the autopsy results showed no Phentermine Phentermine in the daughter's blood at the time of her death. They argued that by blaming a substance she hadn't taken after admission, he was trying to smear the victim's reputation to deflect from the medical negligence captured on camera. Yang's lawyer clarified that she hadn't taken it after being admitted, but the damage to his credibility was done. The narrative became one of a powerful doctor versus a grieving family being gaslit. The pressure became too much to ignore in the court of public opinion. Yang J.W stepped down from his position on an NBC radio show, a move that signaled an acknowledgement of the severity of the situation. Hani, who had initially stayed quiet, found herself collateral damage in the scandal. She withdrew from the JTBC4 program Review and Cut, and perhaps most painfully, the couple announced that they were postponing their wedding. It wasn't a cancellation, but the indefinite delay spoke volumes. The fairy tale was on pause, frozen by the harsh lights of a legal investigation. For Hani, this must have been an excruciating period of silence. She went from being a beloved idol known for her candidness to the subject of intense scrutiny, not for anything she did, but for the man she chose to marry. It wasn't until the summer of 2025 that she really opened up about the toll this whole ordeal had taken on her psyche. During a guest appearance on the talk show Oh Young's Stay, she peeled back the curtain, not to talk about the legalities, but to talk about herself. She admitted that she felt like she didn't understand how the world worked, describing herself as a big fish in a small pond who suddenly found herself in the ocean. She spoke about the crushing realization that life doesn't go the way you want it to, and the exhaustion of constantly feeling self-conscious and walking on eggshells. You could hear the fatigue in her voice. She wasn't defending her fiancé. She was trying to figure out how to survive the noise. While Hani was navigating her emotional recovery in the public eye, the legal wheels were turning slowly, grinding through the complexities of the case. The investigation hit a procedural snag in mid-January 2025 when the Bucheon Wonmi Police Department temporarily halted their inquiry. They were waiting for an expert opinion from the Korean Medical Association, a request they had put in back in October of the previous year. The police were careful to frame this as a standard procedural suspension, a pause before the final conclusion. But for the victim's family and the public watching, every delay felt like justice deferred. Then, in late February 2025, there was a glimmer of the old Hani. It was confirmed that EXID would be making an appearance on Immortal Songs, marking her return to the entertainment business. It was a reminder that before the controversy, before the engagement, she was a performer with a magnetic stage presence. But even as she stepped back onto the stage, the shadow of the case lingered. The narrative wasn't just about her music anymore. It was about her resilience. The most significant development, however, came just recently, in October 2025. The slow-moving investigation finally produced a major escalation. According to the Gyeonggi Southern Provincial Police Agency, a doctor working at Yang J.W's clinic, referred to as Dr. A, was arrested. This wasn't just a summons. An arrest warrant was issued by the Ilsan District Court's Bucheon branch because the court was concerned about the potential destruction of evidence. Dr. A was charged with professional negligence resulting in death. It was a concrete legal consequence, moving the case from the realm of public opinion into the criminal justice system. Perhaps even more telling is that Yang J.W himself is now among the 11 suspects booked by the police in connection with this case. While he hasn't been arrested, his status has shifted from a hospital director cooperating with an investigation to a formal suspect. The police are looking at the actions of everyone involved, from the medical staff on the floor to the person in charge. The wedding is still postponed, with no new date set, though representatives insist their relationship remains unchanged. But it's hard to imagine how they just pick up where they left off. A doctor associated with a patient's death due to alleged negligence is a heavy label to carry, and for Hani, standing by him means carrying that weight too. When you look at the arc of this story, it's frustrating on so many levels. You have the tragedy of a young woman dying in pain, a death that might have been prevented. You have the cynical view of a celebrity doctor using their fame to build trust, only for that trust to crumble. And you have Hani, caught in the crossfire. In her recent reflections, she wondered if it's okay to just let go of control, to stop walking on eggshells. It sounds like she's trying to make peace with a chaotic life, but with Dr. A's arrest and her fiancé's status as a suspect, the chaos isn't going anywhere. The legal process will eventually run its course, and the courts will decide what happened in that hospital room. But the court of public opinion has already rendered a verdict on the optics of the situation, and for Hani and Yang, rebuilding from this will be a far harder challenge than any chart performance or variety show appearance ever was.